Hello and welcome to week 4's progress video. In this week I take on modelling as a task which I have not taken on before. During this week I've taken the time to research modelling methods and modelling software, and as we see here I'm currently using Blender. Now Blender as a piece of software is incredibly powerful, and I've only touched on it very briefly before coming to university. Having no prior knowledge of how to use it and merely messing around with it once or twice before, I took to the internet and did some research to see who I could find that could instruct me on some hotkeys and basic understanding of the software. This inevitably led me to a man named Andrew Price, who is a Blender artist, and he runs a channel called Blender Guru on YouTube. Now Blender Guru is an amazing resource as it's full of tutorial videos. It covers lighting, it covers render engines, it covers modeling, textures, anything beginners need to get started in the world of Blender. Now it goes without saying this is ideal for my situation, and I actually began watching his videos on a tutorial series where he makes a donut in Blender. It's simple, it's small, and it shows the kind of imperfections that are in the real world that if you can mimic in sculpting and in computer programming, you can really grab the immersion of reality and put it into a 3D generated space. So as you see here, I'm actually going through the process of modeling out a donut shape from a torus shape, and I've duplicated the top half of a donut, turned it into icing. I'm adjusting the mesh so the icing fits neatly on top. I'm misshaping the original mesh so that it's more of a donut shape, and ultimately just creating the finished product of a donut with icing. So moving on to this next project part, I have created some concept art for one of the NPC characters. Now this character I've actually named GodBot626, and he's a little TV character, a little TV head robot, and he essentially helps you through the game that I'm designing, and he instructs you on what to do and he helps you out, and he's a little interactive AI. So I gave it a shot. I tried to build his model in Blender. Now, unfortunately, I'm still learning Blender, and as a result, I wasn't quite able to get the shape of the head right, and I figured it might just be a little bit too complex of a thing for me to jump to for the time being, as that's whole character creation. I've got to consider the arms, legs, the symmetry of the face, mirror modes, and everything to that nature. I believe it's best to leave that until next week, week 5, when I can do some more research into character creation and spend more time in Blender creating that character. So here I'm creating a button. Now this button is going to be pressable, I should hope, and it's going to be a big red button, and it's going to say press or do not press, and it's going to be an interaction that the players can have, and it's going to be part of the whole choice system. So just going through the textures of the button now, I again use Blender Guru to help me with this part of the creation process. I was able to add a deep red to the button head, play around with the sharpness value, being able to play around with the metallic properties of the button base as well, to try and really get that in-depth feel of it's the button that you can press. And I've done multiple renders of the same button. The button without any textures, just a simple shape after it's been sculpted. A full render with the Cycles engine activated in Blender, which allows the shadows of models to be reflected in the generated space a lot more accurately. Making the button, I've created 2 separate segments to a mesh, so I've got the button head, the actual big red part that you can press, and the button base. Text to mesh. This I found a little bit difficult, but I managed to find it in another tutorial online. So just to recap and to summarise on everything that I've covered in this week, week 4, I've learnt some of the basics of Blender, which I'm fairly confident with now. I've created some concept art which is visual on screen now. I'm yet to create some more concept art to see what I'd like to put into the game. I've created the button model with two parts, parented by the button base, which is the main parent, and then the child, which is the button top. This is done so that it can actually be a pressable model, and it can actually have a function when put into a game engine. And lastly, I've devised a list of questions as I plan on meeting with Stephen Fisher, one of my tutors at the University of Lincoln, who has a further understanding of VR and game engines. The issues I faced during this week, the main ones I faced are with the mesh when I was building the button models and the donut models. In certain parts of the mesh, the model would spike and it would be out of line even though the mesh wasn't actually moved, which was an issue which I need to look into. I'm going to research online and through university sources such as the library to see if I can find a fix for that in the near future so I don't face it again. And the next steps, which I'll be looking into for week 5, is building the Godbot 626 character in Blender, which I tried doing this week. I need to choose the appropriate game engine. I need to start building the level, and I need to speak with Stephen Fisher about which game engine to choose and get his input on how to get started with the VR game. And I need to continue building game assets in Blender. And as it stands, my plan for next week is to start looking at lighting and character creation within Blender. So that's been the progress video for week 4, and thank you for watching.